Welcome to episode 6 of Talking Point on WISP Sports Radio, where we delve more deeply into the systemic barriers facing women in sport. Talking Point is co-produced by myself and WISP Sports. I'm your host, Lisa Ingarfield, and at WISP Sports, we believe women in sport deserve equal coverage. Last month, in episode 5, we talked with Dr. Mary Jo Kane, professor and director of the Tucker Center for Research on Girls and Women in Sport at the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Minnesota, on some of the reasons why the marginalization of women's sport continues in sports media and the effects of the sexual objectification of women athletes. This week, we are extremely lucky and excited to be joined by Shannon Miller, who will be sharing her remarkable journey of holding the University of Minnesota Duluth accountable for its discrimination against her and the court case that she most recently won. Shannon Miller has a lifetime NCAA record of 383 wins. She owns a laundry list of records and accolades, most notably her 5 national titles, which ranks her first among all NCAA Division I head coaches. She's won 5 NCAA championships in 2001, 2002, 2003, 2008, and 2010. She owns more NCAA tournament wins than any other head coach and tops her profession with 11 Frozen Four victories, the most recent coming in the 2010 national championship. Miller's college team made 10 NCAA playoff appearances out of a possible 14 and 7 trips to the Frozen Four. She has enjoyed incredible success as part of Team Canada's coaching staff, as Canada's first ever female Olympic head coach and the youngest head coach at the Olympics Games. Miller led her country to a silver medal in the 1998 Games in Nagano, Japan. As Canada's head coach, Miller also led her team to a 1997 World Championship gold medal and to gold medals in the 92 and 94 World Championship as an assistant coach. So she really has a fantastic record, and we're really excited to have her. Despite this amazing resume, if you can believe it, the University of Minnesota Duluth did not renew her coaching contract in 2014. Believing this to be a discriminatory act, she sued them for sex discrimination and retaliation. On March 15th, so not too long ago, she won her case against them. And we have her on the show today to talk about her experiences and what she hopes her battle will do for women in college athletics and beyond. Welcome, Shannon, to the show. We're so excited to have you on, and we're so grateful that you were able to find the time to talk with us today.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me.
Well, I'm just going to jump right in. I know things probably feel like a bit of a whirlwind right now after your long legal battle with the University of Minnesota Duluth. And the jury came back a little under 2 weeks ago with a verdict against the university, which is very exciting for a lot of people, including yourself, obviously. And I'm wondering if you would share with our listeners or talk us through a little bit of how it felt to have your experience vindicated by a jury of your peers.
Well, it's an amazing outcome after a long, very difficult 3 years. And a lot of people talk about the process being 3 years long, but it was longer than that. Things started to go awry at the university around 2010, 2011. And we can get into that later in the program. And so really, I look at it, it's been since around 2010, 2011. It's now 2018. So it's been a long 8 years. And to have the jury vindicate myself at a federal trial on both claims in a unanimous verdict in approximately 4 hours is a very powerful and honest event. And I think it reverberates around the country, if not around the world.
I know that a lot of people have been paying attention and were celebrating your win. And I think that the win, like you just said, it reverberates around the world. And I'm wondering what you think, or what message does this send in terms of the treatment of women in college athletics, coaches, athletes, students? I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on kind of how this intersects with the bigger picture.
Well, the message that I hope it sends is that it's time. We will no longer put up with being treated as less than. When I say we, I'm talking about female coaches, female athletes, people who manage and lead female programs, athletic programs, and outside of athletics. I hope it reverberates outside of athletics, and I think that it does. We have been treated less than for a long time. There is a law in the United States called Title IX. It's a federal law. Institutions receive federal funding to be in compliance with Title IX, but yet very few are. And so unfortunately, it gets put on us as individuals to have to fight this fight. And even that in itself is not fair, that we are the ones, the women, having to fight this fight just to be treated equal. But that's the situation we find ourselves in. And fortunately, I had the courage to fight the fight, and it came out in my favor, which means it comes out in the favor for all women.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because in many ways, when laws are passed to rectify some kind of injustice or some kind of unequal situation, I think a lot of people kind of like, okay, we're done. The law is passed. We're good to go. But Title IX certainly is evidence of the fact that it's really not enough just to have a law on the books, because it requires systems and people to change. And it really sounds like the University of Minnesota Duluth did not really take that seriously.
Yeah, they clearly didn't. And they had plenty of warning. I am one of those female coaches that fights for my female athletes, and I do not accept being treated less than. And there's so many they're glaring disparities. Let's call them glaring disparities between how the male coaches and female coaches are treated, the male athletes, the female athletes. And so the university had plenty of notice that I was not happy, that things needed to change. We had won them 5 Division I NCAA championships on budgets that were less than the men's, less than my opponents. And I felt that we continued to pull a rabbit out of a hat for the university year after year. And so I started talking to them about, Title IX's a law. It's a federal law, and you're getting federal funding, and things need to change. And so they had plenty of warning, and then they fired us in the middle of a winning season. And so it should have been no surprise to them that I was going to sue. It was certainly no surprise to myself.
Right. And that's what blows my mind, I think. And, I oscillate between being completely not surprised that happened because, I have a lot of experience with Title IX, not with the athletic side, but with the sexual harassment and sexual assault side of things. And then also just flabbergasted that they would let you go and not renew your contract, given your reputation and given the quality and caliber of your coaching and the success of the hockey team.
Well, exactly. So many people said, do they not understand who you are? And I said, they clearly don't. And I say that with humility. I don't mean the reputation I may have for myself, but just who I am as a human being on a day-to-day basis. People that know me, and they know me so well, said, do they really not understand who you are? Do they really not understand that you will fight this fight and you will go all the way to federal court if that's what you have to do? And I said, clearly they didn't understand who I was and who I am. And they acted like it's all surprised, and, they made the right decision. And I don't know. You don't know me very well if you think that you're going to treat me and my staff and my players and our program like that in the middle of a winning season and just disregard us, flush my coaching career down the toilet and think that I'm just going to walk away with my tail between my legs. That's just even crazy to think that I would do that.
Right. And there's still, the last I read, which it may have changed in the last couple of days, but they're still saying that they didn't do anything wrong. Is that right?
Yeah. And, that's disappointing, but consistent with Iowa, for example, the University of Iowa, where they fired 2 lesbian, 1 coach and 1 administrator that were partners. And they said, they were shocked by the jury's verdict, just like this administration at UMD said, we were shocked by the verdict. And then they continue to say, we haven't done anything wrong. Boy, if I'm the Board of Regents and the president of the University of Minnesota, who are overlooking all of these people in this leadership group, I'm like, wow, they're really missing the point. We didn't do anything wrong. Title IX is a federal law and you're not in compliance. And it took 12 jurors 4 hours to deliberate and give you the news. So I think the response should not be, we didn't do anything wrong. It should be, okay, let's look at what we did wrong and let's get better at this and let's apologize and let's move on.
Right. And then there's the capacity for an institution collectively to provide you and others with an apology would require humility, right? It would require them to perhaps acknowledge that they don't always get it right. And I find that systems oppressive systems are largely unwilling to do that.
Well, that's exactly what it is, an oppressive system, and they are unwilling to do that for the most part. But I think there's a little bit of hope here. I guess we'll see. Time will tell. At the University of Minnesota, we have a group called the Board of Regents, and they oversee the entire University of Minnesota system, which the University of Minnesota Duluth is under that and part of that system. And they still have an opportunity here to understand what happened, to accept the decision and accept the truth and make some changes. And just say, you know what, we were wrong. We have been called out on the carpet. We are going to make some leadership changes. We do apologize, and we want to bring the community together and start healing. And we'll see what they do.
Yeah, so really kind of the ball is in their court, to use a sports analogy there, right? That it's really up to them to, the jury has spoken, you've been vindicated. So really now it's their play next, and they can choose the high road or they can continue to back themselves into a corner, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. And continue to allow people to lie and spread false rumors and divide the community and embarrass the university and, quite frankly, embarrass the state of Minnesota. And the ball is in their court. Right,
absolutely. You had mentioned earlier some of the glaring discrepancies of discrimination that you had experienced. And I know that, discrimination is intersectional. And so obviously in many, perhaps not obviously, that's an assumption. In many sports environments, it's pretty hard to be a woman. It's pretty hard to be a member of the LGBT community. And so experiencing discrimination in terms of both of those identities, what kinds of things, if you're willing to share, did you notice, or did you experience, or perhaps your players shared with you that they were also experiencing?
Yeah, this is a couple different prongs here that I'd like to talk about to answer your question. There's glaring disparities between how myself as the female head coach was treated compared to the men's head coach at UMD, but also at the University of Minnesota, which we are part of that Division I University of Minnesota system. Glaring disparities in the resources that they were given for recruiting, to offer summer school to their athletes, to staffing, to meals, to equipment. I mean, it just goes on and on. You could almost pick any little segment of every little piece that they were given, and the glaring disparity is there. The men were given far more than the women. The men are given unlimited recruiting budgets, and everybody knows recruiting is your lifeline. It's your bloodline for your program. They're given unlimited recruiting resources, and my recruiting budget just got cut and cut and cut. It was like after 2010, I mean, they just cut us and cut us and cut us to the point where we were bleeding and almost dying. And while you look down the hallway and you see the men have everything they could possibly want, they have so many staff members are tripping over themselves, and they're able to travel or just able to do whatever they need to do to be successful. And in the meantime, we're getting choked out or bled out, like I said. And the same thing goes for the University of Minnesota, the head coach there. So not only were the coaches and the programs being treated so differently with such discrimination, but so are the athletes. And so who would be okay with a student athlete being treated less than another student athlete? Why would we put up with that? But the female student athletes were definitely being discriminated against. And it was everything, like I said, from equipment to travel to meals to, there's so many things. Being allowed to take summer school, having it paid for versus paying for it yourself. Having a proper athletic trainer. The men have an excellent athletic trainer with a master's degree. It gets paid a significant amount of money. I was always getting somebody right out of university who didn't have any experience on a $26,000 budget to hire somebody. So they had a much better athletic trainer than we did. And that caused a lot of problems for our athletes, getting injured and not being able to get them back into practice or to play. And it just goes on and on. Men have a full-time director of operations. That's an entire full-time position on your staff, an extension of your coaching staff. We did not have that. And so the list does go on. The second piece of that, Lisa, if you don't mind me saying, when we talk about disparities and discrimination, then there's a discrimination of sexism, just blatant sexism, homophobia, bigotry, prejudice, and they're just words unless you have to live them. But when you have to live them every day, they become more than that, and they're painful, and it grows. And it changes you. It festers and you fight it and you do the best you can, but it can change your attitude. It can change your personality, your demeanor. And you're just put in a situation where you feel like you're in a no-win situation, but you got to keep fighting.
I can feel myself getting angry as you talk. It's very disappointing is a very mild way to put it about the way that you and your athletes were treated. And I was talking in my class today about death by 1,000 cuts and how a lot of women in particular, and not just women, but folks who experience marginalization in other ways, the microaggressive behavior, which is the little paper cut, right? And you have that paper cut over and over and over again, repetitively, day after day, month after month, year after year. And so there's this death by 1,000 cuts. And so how often women will leave workplaces that are hostile and discriminatory because there's nowhere to turn, no one will listen to them, and they feel like it's a lost cause, so it's just easier to leave. It's maddening that in 2018, we're still seeing that happening over and over again, time and time again.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's infuriating because not only have they been cut and been bleeding for day after day, year after year, now they have to live with the fact that they just walked away, because not everybody has that courage or confidence to fight back or stand up, or they don't have the means or they don't have the support. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that the women just leave. And then they have to deal with that. And I just recently did talk to a coach that ended up settling and didn't go all the way to trial. And she said she still lives with that guilt. And why should she? She shouldn't. She did the best that she could in the situation that she had. And there she is having to live with that guilt for the rest of her life. And to give you an examples of paper cuts and discrimination, in 2006, somebody took my name tag off my office door and put up a yellow sticky that said Dyke. And that was just one thing. And we got left out of golf tournaments, literally standing in the parking lot. I just won the university, I don't know, at that point, I can't remember now, 3 or 4 national championships. Myself and another lesbian don't get put on teams, and they do the shotgun start. And the entire athletic department goes off with these people in the community for the shotgun start. And we are intentionally left in the parking lot. And it's painful and it's humiliating, and left out of Christmas parties and strategic planning meetings. And I received a lot of hate mail in my mailbox. I received hate mail that said, "The end, Dyke." I received hate mail that said, "Goodbye, go home," referring to Canada. I received hate mail where they would put in the hockey, the attendance record for women at the hockey games, and they would circle it, and then they'd put in another newspaper article with the men's hockey attendance and circle that, and my salary, and it just goes on and on.
Yeah, and that is that repetitiveness and that the consistent way that you're experiencing. It's not physical violence per se, but it's still a violence against you in terms of the way people are treating you and the way you're being excluded. It just wears you down. And I imagine you have, the example you shared with the coach who'd contacted you recently, I imagine you've had other coaches outreach to you over the course of the last several years to share their stories, because your experience, I'm guessing, is not at all unique for women coaches in college athletics.
Yes, you are absolutely right. So I have been contacted by many, many female coaches across the country, and I have listened to them, and I have tried to help them the best that I can. And it's not a unique situation that I'm in, but it's a situation that many of us are in, and it must change. And it's going to take each and every one of us to create change. I'm just one catalyst. This situation is one catalyst. But all of those women that have called me, I've encouraged them all to, in their next job that they get or their next position they go to just fight a little bit harder, to speak up a little bit more, and make sure you document things, because it's got to change.
Yeah, and I think the speaking up is really tough, right? Because if you're in a hostile climate, then there's great professional and personal risk by talking up and saying, hey, this is discriminatory, or hey, you're violating a federal law here. And so it's understandable why many folks who experience discrimination such that you're describing choose not to say anything. There's decisions that are made based on the context within which they live, right? Their life. And so I think it just becomes very complicated and troubling. And then, but that's what the quote unquote system which is we try to deconstruct these systems of power on this podcast, right? That it's not like individual actors. There are individuals operating under this broader system of oppression that is endeavoring to maintain the status quo and maintain power for those who have it. And so the system kind of writ large silences women, silences members of the LGBT community, silences people of color, people with disabilities. So all of these folks who are experiencing these 1,000 paper cuts, right? And it can feel really debilitating sometimes. I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about how to stay engaged or how to stay energized in those kinds of environments.
Well, it is hard. I did a lot of meditation, especially from, say, 2010 afterwards as it got worse. And I would sit in my basement and meditate and really think through things and talk about, the good things about myself. And I would recommend that other female coaches do this as well. And I would think about, I'm a very peaceful and I'm a very calm, kind, compassionate, loving person. Don't let them take that away from you. They're damaging you and you're fighting and this is hard, but try to be authentic, try to stay and be who you are. And I would have those conversations with myself through meditation. And I would recommend other female coaches do it as well, because you don't want them to get the best of you. I did say earlier that, these wounds, they fester and they hurt and they can change your attitude. They can change your personality, your demeanor. And it will a little bit. I mean, it's if you're human and it's going to happen, but you do try to fight it. You try to manage it. And I guess the way I looked at myself was I'm a peacemaker and I'm a warrior and I'm a way shower. That's how I thought of myself. I'm a peacemaker. I'm a warrior. I'm a way shower. And I have to try to keep this balance of being kind and positive and compassionate and this peacemaker, and try to keep talking and having conversations with people, whether it's the athletic director, the senior women's administrator, HR, the chancellor of the university. Continue to have conversations peaceful and see if you can gain ground that way, but also have the courage to be a warrior when you need to bring that out in yourself. And then the way shower piece of me that I saw myself as a way shower was, I've been put in this position for a reason. And I need to show myself the way. I need to show my staff the way. I need to show my athletes the way. And I am going to be an example for other women. And I want to be a good example, not a weak example. And so I would encourage people to have those conversations with themselves to try to keep their positive attitude and their compassion and their peacefulness and calmness, but continue to find a way to still be a warrior and to fight the fight and not lose who you are in it.
Yeah, because that's really important to not lose who you are, because you're right. When you're struggling and you're in the face of what can seem insurmountable, it can be really debilitating, and it can physically and emotionally change who you are. And that's really important to try and resist that, as powerful as it can be.
Well, it really is. And the other thing I would advise female coaches is, if you've gone to your athletic director many times and their rhetoric does not match their actions, which is unfortunately typical, make notes, put down the date, and you're not asking for trouble. These are your own private notes, and put down the date and the time of the meeting and if anyone else was present, and just jot down a couple of things, because hopefully you don't have to go down the path I did where you have to sue and be in the situation. But what if you do one day, and then you're armed with some knowledge and facts. But the other thing is, you go to HR and you're pleasant. You don't go in screaming and kicking and yelling obscenities, but you go in and you sit down and you have an adult to adult conversation, and you try to get them to understand what's going on and help you. And in my situation, although I found one of the women to be understanding, she never did anything to help. The other one that I dealt with was not understanding or helpful. But I made notes. I documented it. I had no idea I was going to be going off to a federal trial or a state trial at some day in the future when all this was going on. I was just making notes so I didn't lose my way. I wasn't losing my sanity. I was keeping track of what I was trying to do and any progress that was made. And I even went directly to the chancellor of the university on several occasions. And when it gets to the point where they don't do anything, and you've won 5 Division I national championships, you've been to the White House 5 times to be honored by the President of the United States, and they still don't do anything, sadly, you may end up in a situation that I'm in, where you have to sue, but fortunately I have great documentation.
That's a great tip for folks who are experiencing discrimination, is that writing everything down with a date. And in particular, if there are witnesses, I think that can be really helpful, because over time you end up with a good history of those experiences and the doors that you've knocked on that have been closed in your face. So I think that's a really good tip for listeners who might be experiencing something similar. Now, in terms of the folks at UMD, did you find any allies? Were there any people who supported you along the way?
You mean before I was fired or after?
Well, maybe both. Before, so while you were experiencing this massive disparity in the way your team was being treated vis-a-vis men's teams, and then also for the discrimination, the personal attacks and discrimination you were experiencing.
Well, I went to the senior women's administrator, Karen Strummy. So that was her title back then. Now she's an associate athletic director. And her job is to support the female coaches and athletes and programs in the department. And her advice was basically stay in your office and don't ask for anything. Don't cause trouble. Don't rock the boat. So that went on for years. Yes. So she was also the interim athletic director at one point, and I went to her, and she was a little more open at that point. She nodded a lot, and I thought she was agreeing with me because she was nodding a lot, but then she didn't do anything either. So I also went to the LGBT director on campus. She couldn't believe some of the ways I had been treated, and the fact that I had already gone all the way up to the chancellor of the university, Chancellor Black, and nothing had happened. So she got involved in supporting me, and she went directly to the chancellor herself. And she talked to him about it. And she said, this is Shannon Miller. She's our most successful coach that UMD has ever had. She's our most high profile female in the community. She's the most high profile LGBT person we have in the city of Duluth. We can't have her being treated this way. And he agreed, and he said he would look into it and do something about it. And he never did. And so she was in my corner as well. Sadly, after we were fired, and she got people to picket, and she was really fighting for us and having conversations with vice chancellors and chancellors. They ended up treating her really, really poorly, and they ran her out, and she ended up suing them, and she settled. But there wasn't a lot of support. I went to HR several times, and like I said, one lady, I really did like her, and she listened, and she seemed to be upset by how I was being treated, but it's like she had no power. She really didn't do anything. The other one was really there to protect the university. So not a lot of support, other than, of course, within my own group of people, my staff, and some of the parents that I was close to. And then after we got fired, lots of people came forward to support us. Like with regards to people from the university, not very many, a few. Most people ran the other direction, especially people in the athletic department. And, that's disappointing, because you thought you had good relationships with some of these people, and then they just run the other way. But I guess that's that, primitive instinct of survival. So I try to be understanding about that. But anyway, a lot of people came to support after we were fired. Well, thousands and thousands of people actually from around the world, and majority of my alumni have been awesome.
Great.
Yeah, but a lot of other people, they hide and they cower, and that's disappointing, obviously.
Yeah, it's very disappointing to hear how few allies that you had at the university, and even your one kind of primary ally, the LGBT director, was then treated very poorly and run out of the institution. That's really troubling, right? To think about the climate. And then I think about students who are on that campus. So women students who identify as lesbian or gay or bisexual, and trans students. And what are their experiences like if staff and faculty members are being marginalized and discriminated in a similar ways to yourself?
Well, exactly. What a great example of systemic oppression that you've already raised. But yet they stand there publicly and to the papers and say, we have a great climate environment on campus. It's wonderful. And it's like, actually, no, it's not. And if it is now, awesome. Then this lawsuit triggered change. This lawsuit triggered change for those women. And that's great. That's one of the positive effects of it. But it sure wasn't before. And they sure weren't interested in talking about it or doing anything to create change.
So have you had time to digest everything that's happened and heal a little bit from your experience? I mean, obviously, like you had identified at the beginning of the show, this has been going on for a very long time, and you must be pretty weary, even though jubilant from your win. But what are you doing to take care of yourself and to really heal from this horrific experience?
Well, since the trial's over, we saw some friends in Minnesota before we left the state. And I went to Las Vegas, actually, and with my mom, as silly as that sounds. I went with my mom and my partner, and we just had downtime together. And it was wonderful because I was very tired. I was very drained, as was she. It was very, very hard on my mom and my partner. And so we just laid low for a few days and got some rest. And just today, I actually traveled to Palm Springs, California, where I live here as well, and I have a business here. And I'm kind of excited about this weekend because everyone that I know has been texting me, when are you coming back to Palm Springs? We want to celebrate. And so driving into Palm Springs today, my mood changed to a little more joyful. My shoulders were back. I was listening to some music. I was excited to do the interview. And I feel really good about this weekend. So I want to celebrate with a lot of friends. And I also have relatives here. And we're going to do that for the next 3 or 4 days. And then I really want to buckle down and start trying to heal. I need to work out. I need to meditate. I need to read. And I need to just heal and start the healing process day by day. And the crazy thing is, though, is we still have another fight on our hands. We still have a state trial, which we can talk about in a bit with the 3 coaches combined. But yet I do need to start trying to let this sink in, what I just went through, what happened. I have so much gratitude, of course, for the jurors and the judge. But yeah, I have to start healing.
What's the timeline for the state trial? Do you know?
Well, it's quite an interesting legal process we have here in the United States. Certainly learning a lot about it. So we filed our motions, our paperwork to go to state trial for 3 coaches on 3 claims each. Then the university immediately files papers that say, oh, there's no evidence here and you should throw the case out. And that's where we're at again, just like we did with the federal case. But the interesting is this federal judge, he was the one that separated the claims. And he said, our state claims are our strongest claims. So he's told the lawyers that on both sides. He's told us, the plaintiffs, that. And so the media knows that. Some of the public know that. And so a lot of people strongly believe that the university should settle those claims versus doing this again for 3 years and dragging everyone through it for another 3 years or 2 years, whatever it's going to be. And not because they care about us 3 plaintiffs, because clearly they don't, but for everybody that's involved, specifically the university, the community, and the state of Minnesota. So when a federal judge says, hey, those are your strongest claims, I hope the Board of Regents is listening and, maybe they'll be wise and make a good move. I guess we'll see.
What do you think's going to happen? Do you have a sense?
Well, what I'd like to believe is that the Board of Regents would be very open to the verdict that just came in and make some leadership changes and then settle or try to settle, I guess I should say, with the 3 coaches instead of dragging this out for a couple of years. And like I said, not for us, but for everybody. As a betting woman, now that I'm not in the NCAA, I'm allowed to bet. I would bet that we go to trial. And I would bet that all 3 of us go to trial and that all 3 of us win. And this could go on for another couple of years. And I don't feel bad for myself. I feel bad for the university and really the community of Duluth.
Right, because it's a fairly small community, right?
Yeah, it's less than 100,000 people, and it's a small campus, and it's the community is divided, and it's been a fight. And I've had community members who are supporting me cry and say, I was born and raised here, I'll live here forever, and I'm just sick by this. It's divided us. It brings such negative worldwide attention to our city. And she's just like, I just don't understand what they're doing, the leaders and the Board of Regents. Like, what are they doing? And these people are in pain.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I imagine or suppose the Board of Regents have not reached out to you at all at this point.
No, they haven't. And, I do try to remain hopeful that there's some good human beings on the Board of Regents. I really only know one woman, and I thought she was fabulous when I spent some time with her. She flew to Washington to come to the White House with us to be honored by the President of the United States. And she's the only one I really know. And like I said, I think she's a very strong, intelligent woman. I doubt she's okay with all of this, but I've never heard from any of them. So you kind of hope that maybe now that some of the truth is out and we've been vindicated, you hope that they'll do the right thing, and you hope that they might even have enough courtesy to apologize.
Yeah, and then, also to make the decision to not drag folks through another trial. I think that's so important based on, the factors that you identified. But it feels like to me, the university has, backed itself into a corner by saying, we still didn't do anything wrong. And so then to settle with you on the state trial kind of feels like they would be perhaps tacitly acknowledging blame, even though that's not necessarily what settling is, right? And so I wonder whether stubbornness and perhaps stupidity will prevail, like you anticipate.
Right. Like I said, I know where I would place my bets, but I also am a kind, compassionate human being, and I will stay open to what may happen or could happen and try to be optimistic.
Yeah, and I think some of the struggles here, we've talked about this on Talking Point before, is that it's really easy to blame a person, right? And to say this person is the bad apple. And so like the person in HR who didn't do anything, they should get fired. Or the president or chancellor of the institution, they didn't do anything, they should get fired. But it's not just about individual action, right? Certainly individuals have had moments and have contributed to the inaction and the lack of accountability. But going back to that point about systemic oppression is that this is a system that needs changing. So the University of Minnesota as an educational system needs to shift, right? It needs to have a monumental shift about and a really long, hard look at the climate that they're creating for folks who have been historically oppressed on college campuses and in college athletics.
Oh, exactly. And this is where I hope the Board of Regents understand the opportunity that they have. Like, they are in the spotlight right now more than they possibly even realize, because they don't know about all the conversations I've had with people that have contacted me, and not just from across the country, but around the world. And this is happening at all of these institutions. And so to bury your head and deny any responsibility and to not apologize and to act like we did nothing wrong and there's really nothing going on here, then you're just getting in line with everybody else, which is the problem. And if you acknowledge, wow, we have an opportunity here, we can actually be the leaders in this domain, and we can step up and say, hey, the jurors have spoken, 12 of them, unanimous in 4 hours. They have spoken. We are the people. These are the people. And the judge has said the strongest claims have yet to be heard. They'll be heard at state court with these three coaches. So there's an opportunity they have to say, hey, okay, we were wrong. We are going to correct this, and we're going to lead the way for other institutions. Instead of being the villain for the rest of their lives, they'll be applauded as heroes and heroines. And they really do have that opportunity, and other institutions will follow. They will. Other boards of regents, other presidents, other chancellors and athletic directors, and they have a chance to make a shift here and create change. And these are academic institutions, and aren't we about education? Aren't we about accepting responsibility? Aren't we about positive change?
Yeah, I think that's the rhetoric, certainly. But you of all people can acknowledge and have witnessed how rhetoric and talk differs often from action and behavior, right?
Well, absolutely. Hey, I want to share a little fact with you, Lisa, that you may not know, and I'd love the viewers to know. So a lot of people watch the Olympic Games in South Korea. Well, Team USA for women's hockey won the Olympic gold medal. Okay? And so here's an interesting tidbit. When I was at UMD coaching, the year we got fired, in November, we had signed an NCAA. They signed these documents with players. Coaches signed these documents with players. We had signed, her name is Maddie Rooney. She's a Minnesota gal, but she was the starting goalie for Team USA at the under 18 level, the junior program, when we signed her. So we signed her in November. We were fired on December 9th. Okay. So the athletic director knew that we had Maddie Rooney coming in to be our goalie for the UMD Bulldogs with the already young and strong team we had that was ranked 6th in the country at that point when we were fired. And so then to watch her a couple years later playing at the Olympics for the senior team, Team USA, she's now the Olympic starting goalie. She's in net for not only the gold medal game, but the shootout and the win of the gold medal for Team USA. And that was our goalie that we recruited and signed, and the athletic director knew she was coming. That's just crazy.
It is. I mean, that's amazing in terms of a testament to your coaching and your team, and that she wanted to be a part of that. And then to be so, I don't even know what to call it in terms of the athletic director's behavior in face of all of this evidence that it's just, I'm kind of lost for words, honestly, about how to articulate that based on not just that fact that you just shared, but just everything that you've shared about how problematic and troubling and heinous and horrific their behavior was, and the university's just complete and utter negligence and failure to act to support you and your staff and your students.
Well, exactly. Because when they fired me in July, when we talked, and then they never talked to me again until December 9th. And I go into a meeting on December 9th with the chancellor and the athletic director, and I actually think I'm going to get a new contract because I'd been asking for one since March. And humiliatingly enough, I had crunched numbers and I was ready to negotiate for myself. And I'm fired. And me and my staff were told we're being terminated. I mean, you can't even imagine what happens inside your body and your heart and your mind when that happens. But every conversation I had with them, they said it's financial. We have a budget deficit. We just can't afford to pay you. And it's financial. And then when I said I was going to sue, then 6 weeks later, they come up with these other reasons. And one of the other reasons they started to list was performance. Well, I've won 5 Division I national championships, more than any other coach in the country. And I am not at a Big Ten athletic institution with all the resources and staff and money. So that's quite remarkable. The year we were fired, it's the strongest coaching staff I had ever had, ever. And that includes when I coached the Canadian Olympic team. It's the strongest coaching staff I ever had. And I told him that. And fortunately, I put that in writing to him and the chancellor before I was fired. And we had this great team. We had great seniors on the team, and we had these 9 young freshmen. We were doing really well. And then he knew we had this goaltender coming in. So for them to say performance and hope that people will buy that, and that's the second reason they gave after I said I was going to sue, is just asinine. And then they started talking about attendance. Well, attendance was slipping. Well, we were ranked 3rd or 4th in attendance constantly in the country out of 36 teams. So what are their reasons? Their reasons are discriminatory, sexism, homophobia, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, it certainly seems that way. And obviously the jury agreed with you, and most likely the state trial, if it goes that way, will also agree with you, because it seems so transparent. Now, retrospectively looking back on it, it's clearly not financial. It's clearly not about performance. So what else is it about? Yeah.
I'm comfortable saying this. It hasn't been presented as evidence at court yet. It will be at the state trial, but my story's been out there ever since they fired me. So I'll just say it. They targeted 6 openly gay lesbians. There were only 6 openly gay lesbians, and we all were identified and targeted. And he either fired out of that 6, he got rid of all 6. He either fired them or he ran them out because he treated them so horribly. And 3 of us out of the 6 are going to state trial. And the evidence is very strong. It's very clear.
And the other 3 just decided not to participate. They were done.
Well, the 3 that decided to go to trial are the head coaches. So you're the leaders, right?
Okay.
And you're the ones that are targeted. And then they say, well, your assistant coaches are getting fired, but that's because we're just making a coaching change. And in athletics, it's common when we make a head coach change, the assistant coaches are changed out as well. But that doesn't get them away from the fact that they identified and targeted 6 women, only women. Well, they're saying it's budget. So they're not doing anything to the men, it's just the women. And then we just happen to be the 6 openly gay women in the athletic department. And the female head coach that is actually straight, she was not affected and she was not targeted. So I just wanted to get that out there as well. It's rather obvious.
No, that's very compelling what you shared. And I think that that's part of the struggle is for folks who are, looking on at this, is to understand that there was what seems like a calculated strategy to either create a climate that was just so hostile you'd leave on your own, or fabricate reasons for you all to be fired. And then now that hasn't really worked out for them, they're not even able at this point to acknowledge their missteps and issue an apology to you all. And that is what is perhaps the most disappointing of all of it.
Yes, utterly disappointing.
Yeah. So you said you need to take some time to heal, and, thinking beyond this, and maybe it's hard to think beyond the state case that's pending. But what do you hope to do in the future, in the next several years? Do you have an idea? You want to continue coaching? Do you want to become an advocate for women coaches nationally, internationally? Have you given much thought to your future?
I've given a little bit of thought to it every day for the last 3 years, because people in the know, the professionals tell you you're not going to get another coaching job because you're suing. And then it breaks your heart, and your heart's already broken, and you don't want to believe that. And you don't believe it. And you apply for jobs, and you make phone calls. And I mean, I've called Europe, Canada, across the US, and it's hard. And so when the lawyers told us that, and a lot of professional people that called us, representing women who had sued before, or groups, women's groups, organizations, sports groups, and they said, you need to figure out what you want to do because you likely won't get a coaching job. So just to be clear, I do want to coach again. It's my passion. It's who I am. It's how I'm wired. There's no question that I want to coach again, whether that is I want to coach at the highest level possible for women, or at the highest level possible in the game, which means I've knocked on the doors of NHL teams. And it's not that I think the male athletes are better than the female athletes, but the coaching jobs that have come open, those athletic directors have chosen not to hire me, even given the successful track record I have. So I decided I'm going to go start knocking on other doors. I've applied for men's college coaching jobs. I've applied for the NHL, and I'm going to keep knocking on those doors. I do want to become an advocate, no matter what my career and future brings. I do want to become an advocate for females, for sure, for LGBT people, but definitely for women in all domains. And I'm really proud of this. We started a business. So my partner and I said, okay, everyone's telling us that we're not going to get coaching jobs. This thing could go on for 2 or 3 years. We don't want to sit around. We're doers. We're active people. And we love when you're on a team, you're surrounded with people all the time, and it's high energy and it's fun. And you set goals together, and you're involved in the community all the time. And we decided, okay, we lost all of that. But what can we regain if we start a business? So we're like, if we start a small business in the community of Palm Springs, you're immediately going to meet the other small business owners. We joined 7 organizations, and we're out and about in the community all the time. And so that's been very positive. So I'm proud to say that we haven't just been sitting around applying for jobs and getting rejection letters. We're running our own business, and we're trying to not lose ourselves in all of this. But yes, I want to coach again at the highest level possible. I am not ready to retire or take a less than coaching job. I have earned the right to coach at the highest level. And I want to continue to try to do that, but also be a leader for women in sport wherever I'm needed.
Yeah, and that's just the thing is you have earned the right to be coaching at the highest level, and you're obviously a phenomenal coach given your track record and the number of wins that you've had with your teams that you've coached, and that is maddening to me to hear that because of the fact you sued due to a great injustice that was done to you and others, that other organizations, entities, colleges are not willing to hire you when you didn't do anything wrong, right? That's what's so maddening about it.
Yeah, where are the people that are athletic directors, whether they be male or female, that say, wow, this is a outstanding coach. He's got this great career, this great track record. Her student athletes took the stand at federal trial and spoke about the relationship they had with her and how much they love her and respect her and how great of a coach she was, how great of a mentor she was, how great of a friend we all are now, friends. What kind of athletic director doesn't want someone like that to be their head coach? And so where are these people? I just don't really understand. I really don't, because I guess what you'd like to believe is the people that get those positions are people that have courage, people that have a very strong sense of right and wrong, people who want to lead, to mentor, and they want to get the best head coach they can possibly get for their student athletes. But they're not returning my phone calls. Not getting the jobs. And even though I was told this would happen, it's a bit mind-boggling to me.
I know. And I feel like, yes, you were told this would happen, but that's troubling in and of itself, right? In terms of, again, we think about that system. So even though you've kind of quote unquote won in this federal case, there's the system, the athletic system is still pushing back against you, and that it's shutting you out of these future opportunities, which is just another, it's a retaliatory behavior in many ways, right?
Exactly.
It's not one person that's doing it. It's like a whole, kind of, I'm thinking like with Colin Kaepernick in the NFL and, and how he got ousted because he stood up for something that he believed in. And then every single team in the NFL would turn their back on him.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the system.
Yes. And it's discrimination again on another path with other people. And it grows like that burden and that pain, and it grows with each passing day. And it's really difficult to deal with. It's like, come on, people, where are the great leaders out there that really want to have their rhetoric match their actions when they see so many other people it doesn't, and they'll step up and do the right thing? And I guess I just keep believing that there is going to be somebody out there that, is strong enough, intelligent enough. And my God, you're not even taking a risk. I mean, I'm so grateful. I had alumni fly in from everywhere. I had an American woman who's originally from Alaska play for me. She was in China playing professional hockey. She flew from China to take a stand. I had people from Switzerland, Finland, Sweden, Germany, Canada offering to be witnesses for me. But you have to, only have a few people. I had parents. And where the university, they only had university employees or experts. So they literally only had university employees taking the stand for them that were being paid. And their bosses, Chancellor Black or Athletic Director Burlow, or experts they hired outside of the university. Whereas on our side, it was people coming from all around the world. And so I guess I'm hoping that a president of a university or an athletic director will actually notice that and say, hey, you know what? She's a prize and we're going to go get her.
Yes. And I think with that and with a kind of glimmer of hope that someone or something will do the right thing, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and share your experience. It's been frustrating. I'm angry for you. And I really hope that things turn around and that you get that coaching job that you deserve and that you're entitled to, because it would be a great loss to women's athletic coaching to not have you in it, I think.
Well, I'm very grateful for your comments and your support. Thank you. And I would just like to say I didn't know about your program and your organization until this, so there's a positive that has come out of this. And I'm just grateful to have met you, even though it's over the radio. And I'm going to follow your organization and donate to your organization. And I wish you guys the best, because it's awesome. You have a phenomenal program and people need to know about it and voices need to be heard.
Thank you, Shannon. And your dog agrees, apparently.
Yeah, isn't that great? On cue, they just started to bark.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. We really do appreciate it. And we look forward to a continued friendship and partnership. And we support you as you move forward in your career and in your fight for justice.
Thank you, Lisa. Happy Easter, everybody.
You too. Thanks again to Shannon Miller for sharing her experiences with us. We are so grateful she made the time in her busy schedule in the aftermath of winning the court case. For show notes, including related links and a full transcript of the episode, please visit wispsports.com. You can also find hundreds of additional podcasts on Wisp Sports Radio. Subscribe to us using your preferred podcast player, and don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes. For more conversations from the world of women's sports, including blogs, articles, and videos, visit wispsports.com. Post your comments, questions, and suggestions on our Facebook page, or email us at info@wispsports.com, and follow us, share, or like @wispsports on social media. You can reach me, Lisa Ingarfield, directly at TryToDefy, that's TRITODEFI, on Twitter and on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening and supporting women in sport everywhere. We'll be back next month with another in-depth, thought-provoking conversation.